and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you. Hello, I'm Tom Dillon, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Helen Leathers. Do you know what? I say that without even thinking about what it is I'm saying. It's just become a little bit of a thing now.
Well done for being able to say my name.
No,
Thank
but
you.
just the whole phrase just comes out of my mouth without me thinking about it too much, which is great. Yeah. Hello, Helen. How are you?
Hi. I'm very well.
Good.
I'm very well. What are we talking about today?
I want you to ask me how I am. Come on, you know the rules.
How are you this morning, Tom?
I'm wonderfully well. Thank you
Good.
for asking. Got the niceties out of the way.
Niceties out of the way. What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about presents.
Oh, this is exciting. What have you bought me?
I have bought you nothing
Oh.
except my presents.
That
Yeah.
type of present.
That sort of presents, yeah.
I feel like we're in a bit of a comedy sketch there.
So, yes, presents in the coaching room.
So, when we talk about presents in the coaching room, what are we referring to?
You know all about this stuff. This is your stuff.
I know.
But I'll start talking about it. You're good. You know all of this.
I
You'll
know.
have your contributions.
I have a role to play in the podcast.
So when we're talking about presents, the Association for Coaching suggests that presence involves not only listening deeply, but also being aware of both verbal and non-verbal cues. Being aware of the coach's thoughts, emotions, behaviour, and how they impact the coaching process. A bit of emotional intelligence comes in there as well, which we talked about a few episodes ago. You didn't particularly like that, but
No, I like the emotional intelligence, just not the details of the model we looked at.
so that ability to stay neutral, not bringing in our own biases, judgments, or assumptions, not being reactive to what the coach is saying. So that's the Association for Coaching, the EMCC, the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, suggests that it's the ability to create a safe and open space that enables the coachee to explore their thoughts and feelings. So back again to being non-judgmental and genuinely engaged in the moment. And then the ICF suggests that it's actually one of their core competencies. And they would say that it is being fully conscious and present with the client, employing a style that is open, flexible, confident, and distinctive. And actually, they've got some competencies around it, and they would say that listening deeply, asking powerful questions, and being fully immersed. But again, back to not engaging with our own thoughts and judgments around something. So it's just being with the coachee, really. That's what we're talking about. So common themes coming out of there: authenticity, active listening, emotional intelligence, non-judgmental, adaptability. But I think the authenticity is a really interesting piece, because we've talked about this before, of how we are both extroverts.
Yeah.
And if we just showed up in a conversation as our authentic selves, we would probably have more than our fair share of things to say, particularly if we were engaging with an introvert.
Yes.
So I don't show up as me, really. I have a different presence in the coaching room.
You have Coach Tom present.
Yeah, and I think when people used to talk about bringing your presence to the coaching room, I used to think, well, that's really tricky, because I talk a lot. But if I showed up, I'm quite jokey, I'm quite, irreverent. I'm not sure that would work in the coaching room.
And it probably wouldn't.
No. So I don't think when they talk about authenticity, I don't think they're talking about you just showing up as you.
No. You showing up in the best version of coach you possible.
Yeah.
So you've learnt the skills, you've got this ability to hold the space, to be non-judgmental, to be non-reactive, all of those things that you've just said, and listen and allow the person to speak.
Yeah, and I suppose there is that. At times that might not be what the coachee needs. Like, we tend to show up in that way, and I think most experienced coaches, and I jump on peer support groups, calls with other experienced coaches. And they all tend to have that way of being that they don't say an awful lot. And sometimes just on a conversation in maybe a workshop or something, it's a little bit strange because no one's rushing to speak. And I think, I'm not sure. As in just conversation, this is weird. And I hope that in the coaching room, the coachee welcomes that space and doesn't find it weird in the way that I do when I'm in a conversation.
Well, they're two very different roles, aren't they?
Yeah. But I can see that it's possible that a coachee might be sitting there going, he's just looking at me, saying anything. What's going on? This is weird. It could be, couldn't it? So by showing up and being present and really being present could be a bit unnerving for some coachees, I think. Possibly. I think
that's
how we do it.
That's how we do it. And I think possibly it's more unnerving if someone showed up in that way, when you were meeting them for a cup of coffee and thought that you were going to have a chit chat with them.
Yes.
That could feel like you would probably say, are you doing that coachy thing to me?
Yeah.
So,
but that may be something around contracting is actually letting people know what your coaching presence is.
Yeah.
And there are times when I'm just sat waiting for you to speak and that there will be silence. And certainly that's part of my contracting. I let people know how it's going to be. So, but maybe, one of the elements that comes through in looking at what the coaching bodies say about it is that ability to adapt as a coach. And maybe if someone is uncomfortable with that way of being, be different.
Yeah.
And actually walking coaching would achieve that, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Because there will be times if you're out walking with someone and having a chat, you wouldn't be talking all of the time. So it probably lends itself more to that.
Yeah, when we talked about outdoor coaching with the lovely Anna Marie a few episodes ago.
Yeah, and we're going to be engaging in walking coaching at our conference.
We are indeed.
So I think for me, being present as a coach is avoiding the interference that might come your way. And when we're doing any particular activity. So Tim Galway wrote The Inner Game of Tennis about tennis players and how they have self-one, which is the one that's the inner critic, and the one go, you just missed that shot. You're going to lose the whole match now. And just the voice that gets in the way and interferes with what the body can do. So if you trained as a tennis player, then if you're in the middle of a rally, you will just do things that you're not really calibrating around. You're not assessing it. It just happens. But when self-one gets involved, it starts, you might miss this shot. So I think the same happens in the coaching room, that if we get wrapped up in our own head, we stop being present. So a lot of new coaches will go, I was just thinking about what question I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, don't do that then. Stop. I think it's going to happen. But the more that we can block all of that stuff out and just focus on the person in front of us, the better. So I definitely think the interference, eliminating as much as possible the interference that we are experiencing, is a really good thing in order for you to be fully present.
One of the things that I always think about is when I did my coach training, we called that active listening devoted listening.
Yes.
And I find that really useful to think about, because I'm going to sit and listen to you, and this time and my ears are devoted to you. And so it brings a little bit of reverence to that space.
Yeah.
And so I like that as a phrase, and that's the phrase I tend to use.
Yeah, and I would imagine that some coaches will go, well, I am devoted to them, but I still have to think about where the conversation is going. I'm still coaching. There's a conversation to manage here. But again, I think that's interference, that if you start to worry about where the coaching conversation is going, what the outcome's going to be, then that's going to make it very difficult to be fully present.
Yeah.
You almost have to let go of your attachment to the outcome and trust the process of holding that coaching space for someone that something will emerge.
Yeah.
And it might not be where you started, but the conversation will take you somewhere. I did have one coach that was in a supervision group that was talking to me about bringing something to supervision about, well, if I stop coaching them, then their performance will drop off. And then they'll think the coaching was rubbish in the organisation, so they won't invite me back for any more coaching. And I say, yeah, this isn't really, you're not holding that coaching space, are you? If you're worried about the outcome and someone's performance after you finish working with them, and then what the organisation will think of you, that's a lot of interference, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really going to get in the way of you turning up and holding that space for someone.
And not really focusing on empowering or helping the individual to find their own self-efficacy and autonomy, which is an important part of coaching. So
Maria Iliff Wood, who we had speaking at one of our conferences some years ago, wrote a book called Presence in Coaching. And she is very much, she holds that space, doesn't she? When she came to our conference and we didn't know what she was going to do. And it was just a very emergent space of just slowly thinking about what presence is in coaching. And it was
an online conference, wasn't it?
It's an online one, yeah.
It
was just lovely for everyone just to pause a little bit and just breathe and reflect.
Yeah.
And so within her book, she talks about obviously the concept of presence, and that not just the physical attention of, you looking at someone and nodding and all of that, but that emotional and mental, the psychological engagement with someone whilst you're coaching with them. It's that contact that you make. So in Carl Rogers' idea, it's that cognitive connection with psychological connection between the two. And in Gestalt, they talk about the I-thou relationship, that there's something that exists between the two people that isn't just the words that are being said, but there's a relationship being formed there that sits in the middle, which I think is lovely to think about.
It is. And for me, and you can disagree with me if you like, but for me, this comes back to some of the things I've been involved with in the past. So for me, it's an energetic connection, and creating that space is an energetic space. And that's the best way that I can really describe it. It's like setting out a sacred space that we sit within. So I have a little ritual that I do. Just takes seconds to kind of imagine in my head where I'm creating the sacred space. We're within it, even online, and there's a connection between the two of us on an energetic, dare I say, sort of spiritual level. And that for me helps me to hold that space and find my presence. And I have a bit of a grounding technique that I do to center myself in that space.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I think coaching is a sacred space. I think it's, I don't think there's any other space like it.
No.
It is just somewhere where someone can be, and like I said, that relationship exists in that moment, doesn't it? That can be really powerful. So along with that, Maria Iliff Wood would suggest that mindfulness and self-awareness is really important. So you, as a coach, understanding what it is, that bit of metacognition of thinking about your thinking. And if your thinking is going somewhere else, being conscious of that and bringing it back to be fully present. And we're all human, so some interference is going to creep in occasionally. I remember sitting with my supervisor, Bob, face to face, and just knowing that he'd gone. You could just see his eyes had gone. They just glazed. Well, maybe it was being boring, but I could just see he wasn't there anymore. And and it's that thing, isn't it, that you can't not communicate. So even if you're trying to make it look like you're listening, if you're not, the person in front of you, if we really got that connection, that presence that's there normally, if it's not there, people are going to notice.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be very self-aware and mindful and make sure that we hold that space, and also be aware of times when maybe our thoughts are taking us to a place of judgment, or bringing in unconscious biases or conscious biases that we might have. So not being truly with the client. Yeah. And Maria would also suggest that building a safe, we talked about this, haven't we? That idea of the sacred space, just where they can be themselves. And then we're really going to pick up on their non-verbal cues, their body language, that they're not pretending to be anything other than what's going on for them. So their facial expressions, tone of voice, body language are all going to come into play in an authentic way, and we'll be able to pick up on that. So, and then so we're back to that deep listening, but listening to the whole body, not just the words that are being said, but picking up on everything that's in front of us. And I think that's a great way to think about presence and to demonstrate the presence, is to become more aware of what's going on for the whole person, not just the words that are being said. So to calibrate around body language, facial expression, just be fully aware of what that looks like, and when it changes, being curious about what that means for the person in front of us. So Maria would also suggest that intuition is something that comes into play. And again, that's just us as coaches intuiting that something has changed. We won't know what it is, but just being conscious that something is different. A final point Maria makes about presence is that the impact it can have if we do foster that deeper self-awareness in the coachee, encourage them in their perspective taking and generating new thinking, that can lead to much deeper changes.
I mean, all of these things are really important, and they're real key elements of coaching. So it is very much a bit like what we said earlier, arriving in that space, being the best version of you as a coach that you can, and fostering all of those competencies, and almost condensing it into the here and now with that presence, with that mindfulness, with that awareness.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So I was talking to Teresa Lehman, who does work around playfulness in coaching, and part of a workshop that I was attending, she was talking about how we're playful in coaching. And I don't think I am, particularly in coaching, because I show up with that presence that it's not about me, it's about the person in front of me. But actually there are times, so when I'm doing Gestalt work and getting them to move and change state, then there becomes a little bit of play in there, and that's lovely when that happens. But doing that work in the workshop made me conscious of the fact that my presence in the coaching room isn't particularly playful, and maybe there's room for me to be more playful.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's something I'm exploring at the moment.
Yeah, well, she's coming to our conference in April,
so
she'll be able to help you out with that.
Yeah. So, but it was that, and again, it's perspective taking, isn't it? There's someone casting a different light on my coaching and go, well, when are you playful in your coaching? And I go, I don't think I am. But actually there are times when I'm doing Gestalt work that I do, so I'm not doing that face to face because they're up and moving, and it's slightly different. But it gave me the sense that, okay, maybe there's more room for playfulness. Maybe it doesn't always have to be that kind of direct, that focus on the person in front of you. And we mentioned before about coaching outdoors, that if we're walking coaching, you wouldn't have that focus on the person. It would be a different focus because you're listening, but you don't have all the information coming at you that you would if you were sat face to face with someone. No,
you have almost a different set of information then, don't you?
And I think coaching in person, again, is very different from coaching online. I think the presence is different, that ability to see someone's whole body. So if their foot starts tapping, I was with some clients yesterday, and one of them, when he was talking to me, his just foot was going constantly, and it's that, I notice your foot's tapping. What's going on for you there? You wouldn't notice online.
No, you wouldn't.
So there's something about being in the same room as another person that's really powerful. I know, sort of on this topic of presence, you've looked at Amy Cuddy's work. So Amy Cuddy's sort of well known for her power posing research that she did, suggesting that people can feel more themselves if they, I know we talked earlier about grounding, and but her idea was power posing to make you feel more confident, more present, and just allow you to show up as your authentic self.
Yeah, and her book Presence and Maria Eiliff Wood's book Presence in Coaching, we touched on a very little bit in our recent podcast on recommended reads. So there's some links there if anyone's interested. But I absolutely love Amy Cuddy's book Presence, and that's about really showing up in an authentic way and in a confident way that is authentic to you. And I think that if this is a topic that people are interested in, that would be a great read for them, because there's lots of research around how we are perceived in the various ways that we show up, and how we can foster more of a presence.
Yeah, and that sort of takes us on to the coachee's presence, because we want them to be present as the best version of a coachee they can be. Yeah. And that means them being relaxed and not in that fight or flight. They're not going to do their best thinking if they're in an agitated state. So there's something about how we show up as coaches that influences how they show up as coachees, and reassuring them that they're in a safe, confidential space and that you are there for them, I think allows them to go to that place of the default mode network. We're just allowing them to think more creatively, more expansively, and be fully present themselves. Nothing worse than a coachee who's not present.
No.
I was in the middle of a coaching session yesterday and the guy's phone went. He said, "It's my wife. I just need to take this call."
Oh.
And he spent 5 minutes talking about the plumber and how the plumber hadn't connected the bath, but had installed a bath and tiles and everything, but not connected it to water. And yeah, so we had contracted around what coaching looked like.
Yeah, and again, that's something that we need to bring into the contracting, is the space they use for coaching, it being a confidential space where no one can overhear, where they're not going to be interrupted, and maybe something around phones being off.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was something about presence that was absolutely destroyed there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we think about our coaches who are listening, what ways would you suggest that they could develop this enhanced presence?
Well, I think practice. Mm-hmm. And I think practicing being that way in the coaching of Holder's ways. On our transformational coaching diploma, everyone gets to practice lots, and they do practice certain ways of being. So they will get to practice just listening and not playing back, but just holding that space for someone. I think practicing listening and just playing back as well as an exercise can be really powerful. And that's something you can get together with another coach and do. But just being able to hold that space, play back. Well, you could do it listening to the radio, couldn't you? You could take an extract of the radio and just summarize. So being able to do that and not almost deliberately not asking questions, but just holding the space, just being there for someone, and focusing on them, what they're saying, and then just playing back whatever it is by way of summary or just one or two words. But yeah, just focusing on them. So that's one way. I think you said earlier about grounding yourself, centering yourself before you come in, and that might be breathing exercises just to get you into the right space so that you're fully present, I think can be really useful. And just trusting the coaching process. So I think the biggest problem with presence is that interference of, I don't know where this is going, and I don't know whether they think, oh, I'm any good. I'm not saying anything. Are they going to think I'm not very good as a coach because I don't have anything to say? Like, just trusting the coaching process.
And I think we really notice that when we take people on that 6-month diploma program, at the start, there is that, noise.
Yeah, of course.
And then by the end, we see them just in a very relaxed coaching space. They're able to just sit with their coachee. And I suppose if I used another word to define their presence and how it had transformed in that time, it would be relaxed into. They have relaxed into that space, and somehow by relaxing into it, they can hold it.
Well, they
more
create
powerfully.
Space, don't they?
Yes.
And that's what I love by the end of our program, is that there is so much space in the coaching room, and that's created by being present.
Lovely.
Lovely. I think that's a good time to pause.
I think so. So, in essence, it's an inner calm, it's a mental clarity, it's a trusting the process and openness and fostering that non-judgmental space.
Yeah. But also being fully focused on the person in front of you.
Absolutely.
Giving your full attention.
Absolutely. It's been lovely to talk about presents. Thank you so much for bringing that.
Sorry, I didn't bring you anything. Didn't bring you a gift.
Well, you know me.
Kind of set expectations.
Next time on the podcast, we will be looking at another approach to coaching. So tune in for that one. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And thank you, Tom, for bringing presents, but no presents. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Helen.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.